Hello guys, welcome to another Daraja API tutorial. My name is Ben. In this class, we're just going to focus on very few things. And the few things I'm focusing on is the final code that I had made in regards to the API in general. So what I did was formatting the requests. So I'll open two of these files so that we can be able to compare what we did on our tutorials and now what we are doing when we know what we are doing already. Yeah, so this is going to be a very simple task, so bear with me. Let's start. So initially we had our code for obtaining an access token. I made a class on this end, and the constructor accepts the consumer key and the consumer secret as the parameters, and then I created a function or a method for getting the access token, and the access token is obtained. We're also calling it and assigning a value on our constructor, which, as you can see, it calls the access token without passing any parameters. Now this is not magic, very simple, and I've also set the headers here. Something else I wanted to say is how we formatted our requests for obtaining our access token. As you can see, we initiated our URL on curl-init, and then instead of having calset opt, we decided to create an array that will take in everything that we were doing here. So we have decided this one from here to here will be inside an array, and exactly that's what we've done here. This code will be available for you. Then we do everything as we had done here. Yeah, that is on the part of access token. Now the reason why we had to do it here, having a variable which is global variable access token, so that when we come to our request bodies, as you can see, I've also decided to split each method, like register URLs separately. And the reason why I had to do separately despite having one God function, yeah, is because we might not know, or we might expect some changes to happen, or there might be some changes in future on the Daraja API the core API, and you'd find probably the register URLs might change with some things or some few options on concept opt or whatever they'll require. And that way we won't have to like break all our code to accept the change. All we'll need to do is to come to the register URL and update accordingly, so that whenever we are calling this method, we are just calling it with the required information or data that we have, and we can update it accordingly. So currently I've set it to return this function, and this is the main, I'll call this one a God function. A God function is a function that does almost everything for your program, and this actually does everything. This method here, transaction request body, does everything for you. In other words, you can use it to reverse a transaction, to fetch transaction status, account balance, B2C, and everything. And that is what I did last time. I was telling you that we were trying to simplify this part, yeah, and we were able to extract everything and remained with the post data. And the post data is what we are sending, and the endpoint URL. Let me show you something else that I've done. I've also been able to come and create something or another file called parameters, and now here is where I'll define everything that is required for my API to work on my end. Yeah, I'll put my shortcode, business shortcode, initiator. This one is not necessary. In fact, it is not. Yeah, it's only used when we are doing our tests. Something else is the timestamp, passkey, and the password, how we are calculating and everything, so that whenever we are doing these transactions, we don't have to keep on repeating any information that we need here. And then I'm also defining all my URLs. So when I find that I have a broken URL, either it is a confirmation, validation, timeout, B2B, whatever, I'll know exactly what file to go to, not on my request body. I'll know this one is inside my params file, and I'll go here and update accordingly. That one saves me a lot of time. So this actually happens or works on all of them. And then I've also decided to create another folder here called secure folder, and my form sends a posts request to this file, respective file. Yeah, if I'm executing a B2B, that posts request from the whatever form I'll have created. And I'll use this example that I had created. So I have this one, .us projects. Which project am I going to? Payment solution. Yeah, we have it here, and I'm specifically looking for this one. So I'll go to examples, and I want to go to B2B. Now, this is the form that you'll have created. Here, you'll be expected to write the business pay bill of the pay bill of the business that you are going to pay. On the second part is the account number or any other information that you'll be saving on your own, on your database, on your end, the amount and the account reference. Remember, only 2 things will be used on M-PESA. Of course, you need to fill all of them, but only 2 of them will be, and that is the amount and the pay bill and the amount. The rest, you have to ensure you save it by yourself using relations on your database. I'm not going to explain much about that, but I'm expecting that by the fact that you're coding this project or you're doing this project, you'll know how to do relationships on your database and everything. And because this is just probably a final video on this, because I'm not going to do anything else, I'm going to explain everything. And so this video is probably going to be longer than usual, longer than the ones you expect, because you're covering security, you're covering the sample. I'm walking you through the final code that I have done, and I'm hoping that from this part I'm not going to do anything else. From here we are just going to into application, and application I'm not going to mention anything that we've done here. We'll just be doing directly, for example, creating a shopping cart on your website and how people pay and the choice or the mode of payments that they have the choice, either Lipa na M-PESA online, it's B2B, or whatever it is. So this and this, when you click send, they are going to be sent as my post request to this, and then I'm going to take it as a post request, and then I'm going to pass in a command ID specifically for this specific file, which is B2B. The command ID that I'm expecting is business pay bill. And then this is the basic information that is required by the M-PESA on the other end, which I've also provided. Most of this information is provided on the params file that you saw earlier, which is this one. So everything that we require on B2B here is been provided on our params file, so you don't have to repeat it. Then the posts file saves something we call pay data, and we are also adding another file, so that at the end of the day we can have a cal post data, which we are merging the 2 arrays. We are merging post data and the basic data, these 2 arrays, because what you're sending to your server from your endpoint or your front end will be this post data. Then we combine it with what is required, that is what we have on our params, and then we merge the 2 arrays so that you can come up with one, and then encode it so that it can be used directly here, because as you can see on our God function, I'll call it that way, we didn't do much of processing here, and I was trying as much as possible to make this file as fast as possible. So I didn't do any processing. This was just get, send, receive, get, send, and receive. And the endpoint URL, I was passing in the URL because each will have differently. So I decided, let each file contain its own endpoint URL and its own command ID and its own request body, because those are actually the whole of this file only deals with those two things. It only deals with the post data, this one, and the URL, nothing else. Then this one handles the sending to the M-PESA gateway and getting a response. Then once you do this, as you can see, all of them are here and elaborated very well. I'm not going to go through each. Then it will send its response to something I call, this is B2B. Now I have another file I call, this is B2B, yeah, B2B API. And as you can see, this very simple and straightforward. All I'm doing is I'm getting the response from M-PESA gateway, decoding it so that I can get an array, and then visit that, an object. And then once I check that this transaction was successful by checking at the result code, then I'll call the method for inserting to database. So I also have another one for inserting to database. So I have another class here that I had created. I'm calling it process transactions. This is still low level, but don't worry, it is very easy. So what I'm going to do is, now I have this request that I'm passing as a parameter to this method. So if I go to that method, which is B2B, yeah, B2B here, as you can see, I'm again creating an array from the request so that now I can start formatting it to get the required information that I want, the data, exact data that I want, because I can't insert it to the database the way it came. So I'll format it, arrange it, convert it to an array, and then create placeholders out of it, and finally insert it to my database. So you go, I also have another class for database where I'll insert the transaction without worrying about SQL injection, because this one is a prepared statement, so I care less about SQL injection this, and what I'm just caring about now is XSS, yeah, and that is because of what I'll display. Now I would also promise you that this one is at minimum, because unless it is initiated on the other end, because there's also part of security that I'm going to show you that we have implemented, or will be implementing, or I'll be expecting you to implement, given that you are now in this field of fintech. Whatever you're doing now is now money is involved. When money is involved, the government is involved. Where the government is involved, you need to be very careful, otherwise you'll be a guest of the state. Now, I'm also going to be very careful on what I'm doing, and what I'm teaching in this class is purely for education purposes. I'm not teaching you this to go and do real life projects without getting consultation on security, consultation on so many things actually of how you're supposed to handle money. I know you know how money is supposed to be handled. Probably not as much as the government knows. So security to every product that entails money is very important, especially a product that is online. And as you can see, this product will contain a lot of information, including other people's personal information, like their phone numbers, specifically, and their names, which that one is very critical. Yeah. So how are you going to ensure the security of the system is at maximum? So this whole database, these whole files that I've created and summarized for you does everything for you, including inserting the transactions to database. And I'm going to demonstrate one for inserting to database. So we'll go to my file here, and I'm going to start with simulation for transaction. But before that, I'll need to first of all do what we call register URL. I'm not going to fill this information because I have already filled on my params file. So params, you have my confirmation and everything. Now because this one is facing your end, I didn't allow it to probably allow specific or other URL, so I'm controlling that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to register my URLs, and I'm supposed to get a response. Yeah, and now the response was success, as you can see on my console here. The next thing is to simulate a transaction, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to my database. It has logged me out. log into my database, and where am I? Mobile payments is my simulation database. So as you can see, I have up to 21 transactions. So what I want to do is to pay. So I'll go click M-PESA and wait. Probably the moment I'm waiting is for someone to ensure he is paid. Then I'll also send that request. Now I've paid and it has been accepted successful. So what I'm expecting is to see the 22nd transaction here. So I'll reload this, and yes, we have another transaction that has been inserted to my database. That is when it comes to mobile payments. And what happens here is that this one works in conjunction with this. Whatever we send from our end comes to this file here. Then this file requires some data from this. Once that one happens, it goes to my payment, because this one sends directly to our payment API, which now makes the request to M-PESA. Now once that one is done, M-PESA will respond to our B2B API, which is this one, and we'll get the response, and then we'll check if it is true. If it is not, the transaction failed before we knew their end. But now if was successful, it will send us to our processing API. So I'll go to process here, and then we'll go and process the transaction, which is B2B process. Here it is. And then we'll format every no, that was simulate. Yeah, so I'll go to simulate. Simulate is quite simple. To C2B, as you can see, I'll just format the file to include placeholders, and then just called my database function to insert it to database, which is this one here. So we have this file, which is now everything is saved on database, and I also have my log of transaction, what had happened, and I was saved something we call original transaction here, and what I had formatted. So these are things I'm expecting to be probably saving in either remote location, so that I can have them in case of anything in the future, because I can't rely on the database alone. Yeah, sometimes it will fail, sometimes the database may be corrupt, somebody may get access into it, but I need a backup. And so the backup plan is getting the original response from M-PESA, my formatted response, and saving them differently. So this file will grow as time goes by, I mean as many transactions are brought, and it will do the same for all Lipa na M-PESA, B2C, C2B, account balance, reverse transaction, will work on transaction status. I'm not going to go through all that. The file will be available for you to go through, read, make look for your mistakes and everything. So, and because I've tested the classes and they're working, and my parameters, and it's working, I'm not going to talk anymore about that. I'm going to take you directly to the sensitive part, and the sensitive part that I'm going to take you through is